Hello there. Greetings, everyone. Today's lesson is part two of Beatitudes for today. And if you recall, we had a lesson last week that talked about how to apply the Beatitudes to our lives in a personal way. When Jesus did this on the Sermon on the Mount, it was a powerful time. We'll talk about that a little more in depth. But it was an exciting time. And it was the beginning of his ministry in Capernaum, as you recall, out of the book of Matthew. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, what did he mean by these? And you got to understand the culture of that time versus the culture of our time. But the application to our time is so powerful and so relevant that I wanted to go over those to remind ourselves of a checklist in our lives, in our faith lives. That's why we call it Beatitudes for today. Of course, there was a story that starts us off. And there was a man, a farmer, whose horse ran away. The neighbors came to express their sympathy and said, "Oh, what bad luck." And the farmer said, "Well, maybe." Well, the next day the horse returned, but it brought with him several wild horses. And the neighbors said, "What good fortune." And the farmer once again said, "Well, maybe." Well, later on, the farmer's son tried to tame one of those wild horses and failed and broke his leg. And the neighbors came over again in sympathy and said, "Oh, such misfortune." And the farmer said, "Well, maybe." Well, anyway, soon after that, the army came to conscript the young man for war, but left the farmer's son alone because of his injury. The neighbors congratulated the farmer on his blessing and simply said in response, "Well, maybe." So what's the moral of this story? It goes back and forth like this. Blessings can be hidden in what seems like misfortune, and perspective matters. And life unfolds often in ways we don't really understand. And that's what we're talking about here, is that Jesus is saying, blessed are you in these possible misfortune moments, but there are blessedness inside of them, as well as in our lives too. Within our challenges and with our times that we have to face, many times that what comes out of it is some great blessing that God has been involved in our life, and it is using it to change something in us. And that's just a wonderful thing. So let's continue our journey in the Beatitudes to understand how we can apply these words of Jesus into our lives. Now, we covered last week these three. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Now, we will cover now the remainder of them, the five that are left over, that has a wonderful understanding of them. And here they are. Let me read them over to you. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the clean in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. And lastly, blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Well, let's get to the fourth one right away, which is, blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. And I titled this, Be Hungry for God. Now, the harshness of this beatitude is that if it calls a person who wants God and his goodness more than anything else, is starving, it's just wanting something so desperately. So we're talking about living an intense life seeking God at every opportunity. William Barclay, a great theologian, says this, that in the Greek, the phrase speaks to wanting the whole of righteous and not just a piece of it. So what Jesus is saying for those who long for the whole enchilada are the ones that will be satisfied. It's not enough to just want partial righteousness. We are to seek all of God. And that's a challenging into our sinful life. So the words translated as hunger and thirst here are related to words that describe someone who's dying of starvation and one in danger of losing their life from dehydration. That's that desperateness. So this likens to David, King David's outcry in Psalm 42. As the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When can I go and meet with God? That's desperation. That's urgency on David's part when he says, my soul yearns for God in my life. You know, the French have a great proverb that says this: a good meal ought to begin with hunger. Isn't that great? It is hard to enjoy a meal when you are not yet hungry. You're just kind of eating mechanically. But when you're hungry, I mean, everything tastes good and you just love it. It just is satisfying you. And that's what we're talking about here. So if we approach the word with a hunger to be satisfied, we'll be satisfied every time. Effective worship begins with a hunger for God and more of God in our life. So how do we communicate this in everyday life? Well, it's not too difficult, really, but it can be tricky. Well, first of all, start with what you know or where you are. What are you hungry for? What takes the top spot on your list day in, day out? What would it take for you to put God at the very top of that every day? Now, this is a scary thought for many of us. This type of conversation shakes things up a little bit. Then go one step further and then identify yourself as one of the following. A perpetual appetite for virtue and justice will guide you to attain that desire, a development and reformation for righteousness. You know, there's a story about a young man who came to Socrates, the great philosopher, asking for knowledge. He walked up to this muscular philosopher and said, "Oh, great Socrates, I come to you for knowledge." Well, Socrates recognized a very pompous numbskull when he saw one, so he led the young man through the streets to the sea and to chest-deep water. Then he asked, "What do you want?" "Knowledge, O wise Socrates," said the young man with a smile. So Socrates put his strong hands on a man's shoulders and pushed him under. 30 seconds later, Socrates let him up. "What do you want?" he asked again. "Wisdom," the young man sputtered. "Oh, great and wise Socrates." So Socrates crunched him under again. 30 seconds went by, 35, 40 seconds, and Socrates let him up. Well, the man was gasping. "What do you want, young man?" Between heavy breaths, the fellow said, "Oh, knowledge, oh, wise and wonderful." And Socrates jammed him under the water again. And 40 seconds passed into 50 seconds, and he pulled him back up. "What do you want?" "Air," the young man said. He screeched, "I want air." And Socrates said, "When you want knowledge as you have just wanted air, then you will have knowledge." Isn't that great? Starving for God, hungry for God, full of God, satisfied. That's what we're yearning for. That's what Jesus is talking about. Let's go to the fifth beatitude. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. In other words, be merciful. In this verse, Jesus is talking about mercy, but not just the whimsical, judgmental mercy that helps us to feel better. We're talking about really getting on someone's level and seeing things from their perspective, walking a mile in their shoes. The Hebrew word chesta gives us the best insight of what Jesus was talking about. Chesta means the ability to get right inside the other person's skin until we can see things with their eyes, think things with their mind, and feel things with their feelings. That's what that's really talking about. And this is what God did when he made Christ come into the world as a man. Our Creator got into the human skin, saw things with human eyes that shows how much he loves us. Now that's called mercy. So mercy is an act of virtue that Christians can show each other because we have seen, felt, and been given mercy ourselves. And since God has forgiven our offenses, we should forgive others and show mercy. I found this story very impactful. It made me examine myself in my giving and receiving mercy. Copernicus, the great astronomer, was dying, and a copy of his great book, The Revolution of the Heavenly Bodies, was placed into his hand. But it was not his brilliant work that was on his mind. Instead, he directed that the following epitaph be placed on his grave at Frauenburg. Quote, "O Lord, the faith that thou givest to St. Paul I cannot ask. The mercy thou givest to St. Peter I dare not ask. But Lord, The grace that thou givest unto the dying robber, that, Lord, show to me. What humility. God, just give me mercy. Let's go to the 6th Beatitude. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God, which I call just be pure. To be pure in heart is to have a single-minded devotion to seek God and yield to his ways. To expand on this thought, though, Jesus later reiterated the first and greatest Old Testament command to his followers in Matthew 22:37. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. Because no one can boast of a sin-free heart. God sent his Son to redeem us. So when we cling to him, he purifies our hearts and makes us whole. And to be pure of heart means to be free of all those selfish purposes and self-seeking motives. So Jesus was the ultimate example of this. He sacrificed his own life for the redemption and salvation of mankind, for you and I. The pure in heart are free from evil desires and purposes. They can see and experience God's presence because they are free from self-righteousness and arrogance. They're humble before God, getting his forgiveness. That's pure in heart. When my sons were small, I coached their soccer team. And we spent many hours practicing. We practiced and practiced and practiced and learned the fundamentals, how to kick, how to dribble, how to pass, how to make a score. We learned all the secret coaching signs. We honed our skills day by day in the summer sun. We could have practiced all summer, but it would have been meaningless. I may have had a great team, I really believe, but soccer champions maybe. But unless we quit practicing and went out and met the opposition, I would never know that. The team would never accomplish anything until they played the game. The art of playing the game, after careful preparation, is what the world is all about. Practicing and learning go for nothing if we don't go out and use our skills. And there comes a moment in time when we need to leave the safety of our pews and our Sunday school class and go out and meet the opposition and win them over. We strive to be pure in heart into the world. So let us be our prayer. Dear God, so far today I've done all right. I haven't gossiped. I haven't lost my temper. I haven't been greedy, grumpy, nasty, selfish, or overindulgent. And I'm very thankful for that. But in a few minutes, God, I'm going to get out of bed. I could really use your help. Isn't that a great prayer? It's so real, actually. Well, let's go to our 7th prayer, a Beatitude, excuse me. And I call that seek peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Now, the Hebrew word for peace, shalom, means much more than absence from strife. It means completeness or wholeness. Apart from Christ, it's impossible to live at peace with others because he is our salvation and our shalom in our life. In Ephesians chapter 2, it says this, for he himself is our peace, who has made the two groups one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility, by setting aside in his flesh the law with its commands and regulations. His purpose was to create in himself one new humanity out of the two, thus making peace. So the term includes all who make peace between men or women as individuals or as communities, possibly. It includes those who worthily endeavor to make peace, though they fail to succeed. They should be called God's children, because he is the God of peace, who sent his Son as the Prince of Peace. Peacemakers not only manifest peaceful lives, but also work to share peace and friendship with others and to cultivate peace between God and others. However, we cannot give others what we do not possess. We must strive to achieve peace first within ourselves in order to be able to share with others. So that peace that Jesus gives is not the absence of trouble, but it's rather the confidence that he is there with you always. That's the peace we feel in our hearts. There was a man who sought perfect peace. Not finding one that satisfied, he announced a contest to produce this masterpiece. The challenge stirred the imagination of artists everywhere, and paintings arrived far and wide. And finally, the great day of revelation arrived. The judge uncovered one peaceful scene after another while the viewers clapped and cheered. The tensions grew. Only two pictures remained veiled. As the judge pulled the cover from one, a hush fell over the crowd. The picture was a mere smooth lake, reflecting lacy green birches under a soft blush of the evening sky. Along the grassy shore, a flock of sheep grazed undisturbed. Surely this had to be the winner. The man with the vision uncovered the second painting himself, and the crowd gasped. Could this be peace? What they saw was a tumultuous waterfall, cascading down and crashing on rocky precipices. The crowd could almost feel its cold, penetrating spray. Stormy gray clouds threatened to explode with lightning and wind and rain across the top. In the midst of the thundering noises and bitter chill, a spindly tree clung to the rock at the edge of the falls. One of its branches reached out in front of the torrential waters as if foolishly trying to quench or experience its full power. But a little bird had built a nest at the elbow of that branch. Content and undisturbed in her stormy surroundings, she rested on her eggs with her eyes closed, her wings ready to cover her little ones. She manifested peace that transcends all earthly turmoil. And that's what won the prize. Well, let's go to our final one, shall we? Our eighth beatitude. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That's the eighth beatitude, called keeping faith in our suffering. Jesus followed this last beatitude with several verses afterward that expanded on the idea of persecution to include insults, lies, slandering, all kinds of evil in his namesake. Persecution now was a familiar concept to Jesus' disciples in that day, for sure. Though Christ's strength was with them, they daily bore the burden of horrific oppression and torture for the sake of the gospel. While rare in the U.S., it might surprise you to know that other parts of the world, Christian persecution is considered one of the largest human rights issues of our era. Did you know that? So the biblical passage continues after he said this. Blessed are you when men revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For so men persecuted the prophets who were before you. So Jesus said many times that those who follow him will be persecuted. If they persecute me, they'll persecute you, it says in John. This beatitude is so important because even if we're wrongfully persecuted for beliefs or devotion to God, we shall be blessed eternally in the kingdom of heaven. We will receive the rewards for doing that. C.S. Lewis, a great Christian author I love, said this, "Why do the righteous suffer?" He replied, "Well, why not? They're the only ones who can take it." Isn't that a great response? A. Parnell Bailey, no relation, visited an orange grove where the irrigation pump had broken down. The season was unusually dry, and some of the trees were beginning to die for lack of water. The man giving the tour then took Bailey to his own orchard where irrigation was used sparingly. These trees, he said, could go without rain for another 2 weeks. You see, when they're young, I frequently kept water from them. This hardship caused them to send their roots deeper into the soil in search of moisture. Now mine are the deepest rooted trees in the area. While others are being scorched by the sun, these are finding moisture at a greater depth. Isn't that a wonderful imagery of what suffering can do for us? So here's another visual. A clay pot sitting in the sun will always be a clay pot. It has to go through the white heat of a furnace to become porcelain. Those who know the path to God can easily find it in the dark of suffering. One last concluding thought. That concludes our examination of the Beatitudes. I would love to talk about them another 4 or 5 lessons. They're so rich. Please look them up and read them. But don't you wish you could have sat there on that grass listening to Jesus share the hopeful and healing message? I could just visualize it. Well, you still can, you see. Take some time this week and do a spiritual examination just to see how the Beatitudes are in your life, and then you can be blessed. And they're very alive in your life every day, how you operate and cooperate with the Lord. Well, Lord bless you this day. May God be with you. As my dad used to say, blessings on you